Once upon a time in a small town in Nigeria, there lived a woman named Ngozi. Ngozi was kind and hardworking. She loved her husband, Is, very much. Is was charming and always knew how to make Ngozi smile. They had 2 children, Ada and Chinedu, and lived in a cozy house. Is worked as a businessman. He often traveled to the city for work, leaving Ngozi and the children at home. Ngozi trusted Is completely. She believed he was working hard to provide for their family. One sunny morning, Is told Ngozi he had to go to the city again. "I have a big business deal to close," he said, kissing her goodbye. Ngozi smiled and waved as he drove away, never suspecting that her husband had a secret. Days turned into weeks, and Is did not return. Ngozi grew worried. She called him many times, but Is's phone was always switched off. Ngozi did not know what to do. She missed him and so did their children. One evening, Ngozi's friend, Kemi, came to visit. "Ngozi, I heard something strange in the market today," Kemi said, looking concerned. "What did you hear?" Ngozi asked, her heart pounding. "Someone saw Is in the city, but he wasn't alone. He was with another woman and children," Kemi revealed. Ngozi's eyes widened in shock. "That can't be true. Is would never do that." Kemi held Ngozi's hand. "I thought you should know. Maybe you should go to the city and see for yourself." Ngozi couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about what Kemi had said. The next morning, she decided to go to the city. She asked her neighbor, Mama Nkechi, to watch Ada and Chinedu while she was gone. In the bustling city, Ngozi searched for Is. She asked people if they had seen him, showing his picture to anyone who would listen. After hours of searching, she finally found him. Is was coming out of a big house, holding hands with a woman and 2 children. Ngozi's heart broke into pieces. "Is," she called out. Is turned around, his face pale with shock. The woman and children looked confused. "Ngozi, what are you doing here?" Is stammered. "I should be asking you that," Ngozi replied, tears streaming down her face. "Who are these people?" He sighed deeply. "This is my other family." Ngozi felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. "Other family? How could you do this to us?" Is looked ashamed. "I'm sorry, Ngozi. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could keep both families happy." Ngozi couldn't believe what she was hearing. She turned and ran away, tears blurring her vision. She felt betrayed and heartbroken. As Ngozi made her way back home, she felt a mix of sadness and anger. How could Is live a double life? How could he deceive her for so long? When she arrived home, Mama Nkechi noticed her tears. "Ngozi, what happened?" Mama Nkechi asked gently. Ngozi took a deep breath and told her everything. Is has another family in the city. He lied to us all. Mama Nkechi hugged Ngozi tightly. "I'm so sorry, my dear. You are strong. You will get through this." Days passed, and Ngozi focused on taking care of Ada and Chinedu. She didn't tell them the truth about their father, not wanting to hurt them. But one day, Is returned. He stood at the door, looking tired and sad. "Ngozi, can we talk?" he asked. Ngozi nodded and let him in. They sat down at the kitchen table. "I'm so sorry for what I did," Is began. "I was wrong to lie to you. I want to make things right." Ngozi looked at him, her eyes filled with pain. "How can you make this right, Is? You have another family. You broke our trust." He sighed. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to be here for our children. Please give me a chance to make up for my mistakes." Ngozi thought for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Is, I can't trust you right now. But for the sake of Ada and Chinedu, you can stay. You will have to prove that you have changed." Is nodded, grateful for the second chance. He worked hard to regain Ngozi's trust. He spent more time with Ada and Chinedu, helping them with their homework and playing with them. Slowly, things began to improve. But the journey was not easy. Ngozi had moments of doubt and anger. She wondered if she had made the right decision. One night, as she sat alone, Ada came and hugged her. "Mommy, I'm glad Daddy is back," Ada said, smiling. Ngozi hugged her daughter tightly. "Me too, Ada. Me too." Months passed, and although Is was trying his best to regain Ngozi's trust, the tension in their home was palpable. One evening, while they were having dinner, there was a knock on the door. Chinedu, curious as always, ran to open it. Standing at the door was a stern-looking man in a suit. "Is this the home of Mr. Is?" he asked. Chidi's eyes widened with fear as he recognized the man. "Yes, that's me. What is this about?" "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Johnson. You owe him a lot of money, and he wants it back now," the man said, his voice cold and demanding. Ngozi looked at Is with shock. "What is he talking about, Is?" He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "It's true, Ngozi. I borrowed money from Mr. Johnson to start my business, but things didn't go as planned. I was hoping to pay him back with the profits, but now..." The man interrupted, "You have 1 week to pay back the money, or there will be consequences." With that, he turned and left, leaving the family in stunned silence. Ngozi felt a mix of anger and fear. "Is, why didn't you tell me about this? I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could handle it," Is replied, looking defeated. The next few days were filled with worry and tension. Is tried to come up with a plan to gather the money, but nothing seemed to work. Ngozi, feeling desperate, decided to take matters into her own hands. She remembered an old friend, Busy, who worked at a bank in the city. Maybe she could help. Early the next morning, Ngozi traveled to the city to meet Busy. When she arrived at the bank, Busy welcomed her warmly. "Ngozi, it's been so long. How have you been?" Ngozi explained the situation, tears welling up in her eyes. Busy listened carefully and then said, "I might be able to help. We have a loan program that could give you the money you need. It won't be easy, but it's worth a try." Grateful for Busy's help, Ngozi filled out the necessary forms and waited anxiously for the response. Meanwhile, back at home, Is was working tirelessly to find a solution. He reached out to old business contacts, hoping someone could lend him the money. As the deadline approached, the family grew more and more anxious. Finally, the day before the payment was due, Ngozi received a call from Busy. Ngozi, good news. Your loan has been approved. You can come to the bank and get the money today. Ngozi felt a wave of relief wash over her. She rushed to the bank, collected the money, and hurried home. We have the money. We can pay Mr. Johnson and keep our home. Was overjoyed and hugged Ngozi tightly. Thank you, Ngozi. I don't know what we would have done without you. That evening, went to meet Mr. Johnson and paid back the money he owed. Mr. Johnson was pleased and promised not to bother them again. However, the family's troubles were far from over. One night, as they were all asleep, Ngozi heard a noise outside. She woke and whispered, "I think someone is outside." Grabbed the flashlight and cautiously went to investigate. As he stepped outside, he saw two shadowy figures trying to break into their car. "Hey! What are you doing?" he shouted. The figures turned and ran, disappearing into the night. Isa's heart pounded with fear. "Ngozi, we need to be careful. I think someone is after us." The next day, they reported the incident to the police and installed security cameras around their home. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. One afternoon, while Ngozi was at the market, she noticed a man following her. She quickly ducked into a shop and called Is. "Someone is following me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Is rushed to the market and found Ngozi hiding in the shop. "Let's get home, quickly," he said, holding her hand tightly. Back at home, they reviewed the security camera footage and saw the same man lurking around their house. They showed the footage to the police, who promised to investigate. Days turned into weeks, and the family remained on edge. One evening, as they were having dinner, there was a loud crash. A brick had been thrown through their window, with a note attached. It read, "This isn't over." Is and Ngozi knew they had to take action. They decided to hire a private investigator to find out who was behind the threats. The investigator, Mr. Okoro, was experienced and resourceful. Mr. Okoro began his investigation, following leads and gathering information. After a few weeks, he discovered that the threats were coming from a former business partner of Isa's, who held a grudge over a failed deal. With this information, Is and Ngozi went to the police, who arrested the man responsible for the threats. Finally, the family felt a sense of relief. But the journey had taken its toll on their trust and happiness. With the arrest of the man who had been threatening their family, Ngozi and Is thought they could finally find some peace. However, their troubles were far from over. One stormy night, as they were settling down to sleep, they heard a loud bang on the door. Is got up cautiously, his heart pounding. Who could that be at this hour, he wondered. He opened the door to find Mr. Johnson, the man to whom Is had owed money, standing there drenched from the rain. "Is, we need to talk. Now," he said urgently. "What is it, Mr. Johnson?" Is asked, letting him in. Mr. Johnson looked around nervously before speaking. "I found out something troubling. The man we had arrested, he wasn't walking alone. There's a whole group targeting you, Is. They think you owe them too, and they won't stop until they get what they want." Ngozi, who had been listening from the hallway, gasped. "What do you mean?" We've paid everything we owed. Mr. Johnson shook his head. It's more complicated than that. These people, they are dangerous. You need to leave town for a while, lay low until we can sort this out. Guise and Ngozi exchanged worried glances. But where will we go? Ngozi asked. I have a place, Mr. Johnson said. It's a small house in the countryside. You can stay there until it's safe. With heavy hearts, Ngozi and Guise packed up a few essentials and woke Ada and Chinedu. We are going on a trip, Guise told them, trying to keep his voice cheerful. They drove through the night, with Mr. Johnson leading the way. The rain poured down, making the journey even more difficult. They finally arrived at a small, secluded house in the countryside just as dawn was breaking. This will be your home for now, Mr. Johnson said. I'll be in touch. The days in the countryside were quiet but tense. Ngozi and Guise did their best to keep things normal for Ada and Chinedu. They played games, told stories, and tried to make the best of their situation. But the fear of being discovered was always there. One evening, while Guise was out gathering firewood, Ngozi heard voices outside. She peeked through the window and saw two men lurking near the house. Her heart raced. She grabbed the phone and called Guise. Guise, there are men outside. Hurry back, she whispered. Guise dropped the firewood and ran back to the house as fast as he could. He quietly approached the men from behind, listening to their conversation. They have to be here somewhere, one man said. We'll find them. Just keep looking, the other replied. Guise realized they were in serious danger. He crept back to the house and whispered to Ngozi, we need to leave, now. They quickly gathered the children and slipped out the back door, disappearing into the forest. They walked through the night, the only light coming from the moon and stars. Every rustle of leaves made their hearts jump. By morning, they reached a small village. Exhausted, they found a kind villager named Babatond, who offered them shelter. You can stay here as long as you need, he said kindly. Days turned into weeks, and Babatond helped them get word to Mr. Johnson. He assured them that he was working with the police to deal with the gang. Guise and Ngozi remained vigilant, never staying in one place for too long. One night, they heard a commotion outside Babatond's hut. Flashlights and voices filled the air. It's the police, Babatond said, opening the door. Mr. Johnson and the police had tracked down the gang and arrested them. You're safe now, Mr. Johnson said, relief evident in his voice. Back in their home, Guise and Ngozi worked hard to rebuild their lives. He started a new business, one that he ran with honesty and integrity. Ngozi continued to support him, and their bond grew stronger with each challenge they faced. Guise and Ngozi's story teaches us the importance of honesty, resilience, and the strength of family. Despite the lies and deceit, they faced their challenges together and came out stronger. Always value truth, trust, and never give up, no matter how tough the journey may be. And so, with love and determination, Guise and Ngozi rebuilt their lives, showing that even in the darkest times, there is always hope for a brighter future.